Today we will talk about solving percent problems using equations. Before we start talking about the problems themselves, we need to review some words that are keys to these problems. If you see the to be in any tense was, are, plural or singular form, what that means is you're going to use an equal sign. When you see the word of, you are going to multiply. When somebody says what or what number, you'll use the notation n. Then the base is the whole part, amount is the part of the whole part, and rate is the percent part. And the formula that you'll be using is amount equals base times rate. And the rate has to be in fraction or decimal form of the percent. So let's do some of these problems. While you're doing these problems, what you need to do, you need to write down an equation and solve for the unknown. The first type of equation is just a straightforward, what is 15% of 30? Now, the amount is unknown. If you're looking at it, what is 15% of 30? So they're asking you the amount. The base usually comes after the word of. And what is after the word of in this case? Of 30. So 30 is the base. And the rate is the percent, which is 15%. Recognizing the amount, base, and rate is going to help you, and you will see you will always have to check yourself. Did you write amount equals base times rate? Now let's try to write the equation. You don't have to go through the identifying amount, base, and rate, but it will help if you did. Now let's look at the word what. What is n? Let's look at the word is. Is equals. 15% is your rate. Like I said, you need to use either the fraction or percent, the fraction or the decimal form of that. 15% is 0.15. Of means times. 30 means 30. Now, you have an equation where you're supposed to just multiply 0.15 and 30. That will give you 4.5. And you actually are done with this problem. Let's see if we did the right thing. Did we write amount, which is n, base, which is 30, times rate? And it looks like we did this problem right. Let's do another problem. 25% of what number is 10? Now, to recognize the rate is very easy. 25% is the rate. Now, like I said, after of comes the base of what? What number? What number means n? Is 10? 10 is the amount or part of it. So let's see if we got this right. So let's write this down word by word and then double check. 25%, 0.25 of, that means times. What number? That means n. Is equals 10. Did we write amount, which is 10, equals base, which is we don't know, times rate? Yes, we did. Now, how do we solve for n? This is the trick. When you have something that multiplies n, the trick is, whatever that number is, you need to divide both sides by that number. In this case, it's 0.25 multiply both sides of the equation by 0.25. So you have a situation where you're dividing 10 by 0.25. That gives you 40. And guess what? The answer is 40 to this problem. Let's do the last problem. Let's go back. I will do this problem in purple. 10 is what percent of 30? Now what percent, as you know, is the unknown. That's your unknown, and that's in percent. What percent? And percent. Okay? But remember that you're going to write the decimal version of that. And we're going to have to change this into percent at the end. 10 is what percent of 30? So since 30 is after of, that's your base. And then 10 has to be your amount. Let's see if that works out. Now let's translate it word by word. 10 is what percent, that's n, percent of 30. And remember what we had is the what percent, that's going to be in decimal. Now, since this is my unknown, I divide both sides by what is with the unknown, which is 30. Divide both sides by 30, you'll get 1/3, which is 0.33. Repeating. And that's your decimal n. Now, what you do is you need to take your decimal n and you need to change it into a percent. 0.33 in decimal is simply 33.3, repeating, percent. Now, the problems may be worded a little differently, but nevertheless, it should give you the same answer. For example, what percent of, let's do it again, what percent of 120 is 40? And if you look at the previous problem, now this problem is not worded as the last problem that we worked. 10 is what percent of 30? But if you follow the steps, you will see that it's going to be the same. What percent of 120? That means what percent of 120 is 40? So since n is with my percent, I divide both sides by 120, and that will give me the decimal answer. So 4 divided by 12 is simply 0.3. So that's my decimal n. And how do I go to my percent n? You multiply by 100. That means 30%. Now another way is to double check by rewording it. 30% of 120 is 40. Does that sound right? Absolutely, that sounds right. So you don't have to have it worded this way, but if you translate them word by word, you'll be okay. So the what percent word can be in the middle of the sentence or at the beginning of the sentence, and it should be the same. The what number problems, like the one is 25% of what number is 10, can be also worded as 10 is 25% of what number. And instead of what is 15% of 30, you can be asked, take 15% of 30 and tell me what that is. So these problems can be worded a couple of different ways, but if you follow word by word, you will be okay.